Well, let me tell you something straight from the start. My wife cheated on me. And when I found out, I didn't just walk away. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't even confront her. I waited. I watched. I planned. Because betrayal is like a fire, and I was going to let it burn everything she loved. The signs were there for years, but I was blind, or maybe I chose to be. Late nights at work. The way her phone never left her hand. The soft smiles she gave the screen instead of me. Little excuses that didn't add up. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I was imagining things. Lord have mercy, I lied to myself longer than I should have. I'd sit on the porch in the evenings, rocking slowly, watching the sun fade behind the trees, telling myself that everything was fine. That's how it starts, the betrayal, quiet, invisible, like smoke before a fire. You feel it, but you don't acknowledge it until it's too late. Then one night, the truth landed in my lap. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while she was upstairs. I normally never touch her phone. 25 years together, never once had I looked. But something deep inside me said, just this once. And there it was. Messages. Pictures. Plans. Love notes she hadn't given me in decades. She was giving herself to another man, and she didn't even bother to hide it properly. Every word was a knife, every picture a hammer to my chest. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I walked outside and sat in the dark until the first light of morning. The night air was heavy, but it didn't touch me. My heart was numb. And in that numbness, a new version of me was born. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her reckoning. I smiled at her the next morning. Kissed her cheek. Asked about her day. All the while, I was already 3 steps ahead. I started going through finances, our accounts, the house deeds. She thought she was clever, sneaking around behind my back. But I was already playing a game she didn't know existed. At night, I would sit with a cup of coffee, flipping through bank statements, legal documents, small notes I'd taken over the years. I knew her schedule, her friends, the patterns she thought I didn't notice. Every detail became a tool. Every lie became a weapon. Weeks went by, and she grew careless. Late nights became longer. She laughed more loudly on the phone, texted more freely. She thought I was blind, weak, distracted. She underestimated me. I started shifting money quietly, one account at a time. I prepared legal documents that would strip her of everything, leave her with nothing she thought she could rely on. And she had no idea. She was still playing the game, thinking she was ahead. Her lover thought he was clever too. I observed them, memorized their routines. Every meeting, every little moment. I didn't act impulsively. I watched. Patience was my weapon. I let her build her illusion of freedom while I quietly dismantled it all. At night, I would stare at the ceiling, thinking about the years wasted, the nights alone, the quiet betrayals hidden behind smiles and small talk. I let the rage settle. Not like a fire, but like ice in my veins. It sharpened me. I remembered the early years. How we laughed together. How I held her hand on rainy nights. How I thought we were invincible. And then I remembered how easily she threw all of it away. That memory became a map for what I would do next. I began documenting everything. Screenshots, messages, notes. I collected proof methodically. Each piece of evidence wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a promise. A promise that she would feel, at the very least, a fraction of the chaos she had caused me. She had no idea that while she planned her escapes, I was orchestrating her downfall. I wasn't cruel, I was inevitable. Some nights, I walked the streets alone, thinking about what it means to love and lose, to trust and be betrayed. The wind would cut through my coat, but I barely noticed. My mind was elsewhere, running simulations, imagining outcomes, building scenarios in which I would be the silent victor. And then, slowly, I began executing the first steps. Quietly, invisibly. The accounts, the house, the legal papers. I created a web around her, invisible, yet inescapable. She started feeling it without knowing why. Anxiety crept into her nights. A subtle unease that she couldn't place. She thought it was nothing. I let her think that. It made the eventual revelation all the sweeter. I watched her from a distance one night. She laughed with him on the porch of some apartment. That smile, that voice, it would have once warmed me, now it burned me. And yet I didn't move. I didn't confront. I didn't react. I let the moment imprint itself in my mind. Because I knew the power of patience. The most devastating blows are those delivered slowly, deliberately, after the other person has already built a life on lies. I wasn't just planning revenge. I was reclaiming what she had stolen from me. My dignity. My life. My peace. All of it. She continued her routines, oblivious. I stayed calm, almost serene. I carried on with work, with mundane life, while the storm brewed silently. Every smile I gave her was a mask. Every casual word I spoke was a part of the performance. And the night came when I finally put the pieces together to strike. The folder with all the evidence. The legal papers. Everything in place, every path blocked, every exit sealed. She walked into the house late, smelling of another man, laughing. I was sitting in the dark. She froze when she saw the folder. That moment, her realization, her fear, was priceless. I didn't need to say a word. The silence said everything. Her face went pale, the mask of confidence falling away. She had no plan for what came next. None. And that was just the beginning. I didn't act immediately. I let her continue, thinking she was untouchable, thinking she had won. Each day she laughed, each night she whispered to him on the phone. I watched quietly. The calm before the storm. I started small, testing the waters. Transferred small sums, rearranged accounts, making sure she noticed nothing. Every detail mattered. Every tiny step prepared the stage for the fall she didn't see coming. At night, I went through the evidence again. Pictures, messages, dates, times. I memorized every detail. The precision mattered more than emotion. I wasn't acting out of rage anymore. I was acting out of inevitability. She left her phone unlocked once. I took note. Every password, every hint, every pattern. It all became ammunition. I mapped her life, every escape route, every corner she thought was private. There was nothing left unseen. Meanwhile, I kept the facade of normalcy. We ate dinner together. I smiled, I laughed. I asked about her day, and she answered, oblivious. Every laugh she gave him, every whisper, was a thread in the web I was weaving. The man she was seeing had no idea I knew everything. I watched him too, through friends, through subtle inquiries, noting routines, patterns. Everything about him became a piece of the puzzle. And slowly, she started sensing something. Anxiety flickered in her eyes. She felt it, without understanding it. Little things began to unravel in her mind. Missed payments, blocked accounts. She brushed it off, thinking she was imagining things. One evening, I followed her. Not to confront, but to observe. Her confidence was still high, but cracks were showing. She whispered, laughed, and kissed him, believing the world was hers. And yet, every step she took brought her closer to the trap I had set. I continued to shift accounts, seal her access, and prepare legal documents. Every meeting with my lawyer was silent and methodical. Every step was calculated. At home, I would sit in the quiet, sipping coffee, listening to her laugh echo through the house she thought she controlled. And I smiled, silently, because I knew the timing was perfect. I remembered how we met, how love once burned brightly. And how easily it faded, replaced by deceit. That memory sharpened my resolve. It reminded me why I was here, why this had to be done. Weeks turned into months. Her carelessness grew. She stayed out longer, came home later. I observed patterns, recorded them. Every tiny slip became evidence, every misstep another piece of her downfall. I didn't let anger drive me. Patience drove me. Precision guided me. She thought she was free, but freedom is a luxury she no longer had. I started sending subtle signals to those around her. Friends, colleagues, neighbors. A carefully placed word here, a hint there. Nothing direct. Just enough to plant doubt, enough to prepare the world for the reveal. And then came the moment I knew she was cornered, though she didn't see it yet. I had control of everything she valued, money, home, reputation. The only thing left was the final confrontation. Her confidence wavered slightly. She didn't know why, but instinct told her something was off. She looked for signs, questioned minor details, but I gave nothing. I remained calm, normal, steady. Every night, I reviewed my plan. Step by step. Scenario by scenario. What she would do, how she would react. The web was complete, every thread taut, ready to snap. She started making mistakes. Small ones, trivial ones, but enough to confirm my control. She miscalculated finances, doubted schedules, asked questions that revealed her panic. The man she was seeing began noticing tension too. I let that unfold naturally. Little by little, the pressure closed in. And then came the night I decided to strike. Everything was ready. Every piece of evidence, every legal document, every arrangement. The folder, the papers, the accounts, all in place. She walked in laughing, oblivious. I sat in the dark, waiting. She froze when she saw the folder. Her expression, a mix of disbelief and fear, was worth all the years of planning. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. The silence was enough. Her panic, the sudden awareness of her vulnerability, filled the room like a physical presence. That night, I realized that patience was more devastating than rage. That slow, deliberate planning could destroy what years of love could not protect. And that was only the beginning of her unraveling. The next morning, she woke up and saw the folder on the kitchen table. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she froze. Every smile she had worn for months disappeared. Panic settled over her like a dark cloud. I sat at the counter, coffee in hand, and watched silently. I didn't speak. I let her discover, piece by piece, the consequences of her choices. She opened the folder, her hands trembling, and her eyes scanned the evidence. Screenshots, messages, photographs, everything she had tried to hide. Then she noticed the divorce papers beneath it. Her breath hitched. She looked at me, words caught in her throat. But I didn't respond. Silence was my ally. Every second of that pause added to the weight pressing down on her chest. She tried to plead, to explain, to bargain. But every document I had prepared was airtight. Every account, every property deed, every asset was beyond her reach. I had left her nothing. Not a house, not a bank account, not even the car she drove. She sank to the floor, stunned, as if gravity itself had betrayed her. The man she had trusted, the lover she had given herself to, was suddenly irrelevant. Nothing mattered except the devastation I had orchestrated with quiet precision. The following days were a whirlwind for her. She tried contacting friends, family, colleagues. Some believed her, some didn't. By the end of the week, whispers had spread. Reputation, something she had taken pride in, began to crumble. Meanwhile, I continued to live normally. I kept working, kept attending social functions, kept smiling for appearances. Outwardly calm, inwardly I was the storm she had unleashed on herself. I filed legal motions, ensuring that everything was documented in a way that left her no options. I made sure the house would be mine. The accounts were secured. Even her favorite vacation fund had vanished. She realized, finally, that she was alone. No money, no support, no escape. She cried endlessly, begged for mercy, for leniency. But the truth was, she had taken that from herself. Every night, I would sit quietly, sipping coffee, listening to her sobs from the apartment she now lived in. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Her own awareness of what she had lost was punishment enough. I had removed her from our home. I had removed her access to everything we had built together. The house felt empty without her presence, but I didn't feel lonely. I felt vindicated. The man she had been seeing tried to intervene at first. But the evidence was so clear, so undeniable, that he quickly backed away. His presence faded from her life as swiftly as she had faded from mine. Friends who once visited, laughed with her, and confided in her, began to disappear. Subtle social cues, whispers, and gentle rejections added to her growing sense of isolation. She had no one to turn to. I watched from the porch where I had spent so many mornings before the storm. The sun rose and fell, the seasons changed, but she remained trapped in the consequences of her own choices. I began planning the final stage. Not because I wanted cruelty, but because there was one remaining thread she still clung to, her career. Everything else had been stripped away. I contacted her colleagues subtly, shared some evidence where necessary, and allowed the truth to emerge naturally. It was like dropping a pebble in water, the ripples spread farther than I could have imagined. She arrived at work one day to find judgment and doubt everywhere she looked. A simple glance, a raised eyebrow, a whispered conversation behind her back. The isolation she had built for herself at home was now mirrored in public life. Her career began to crumble in slow, deliberate steps. Projects fell through. Clients hesitated. Managers questioned her integrity. She had built her life on deception, and now deception dictated her downfall. I never intervened directly. I let the world react. I let people see the truth and make their own judgments. My satisfaction came from watching, not doing. And slowly, the woman who had once laughed at my naivety became a shadow of herself. Every confident stride was replaced with cautious steps. Every smile was forced. Every word measured. She had been stripped of home, money, lover, friends, and now her reputation. The isolation was complete. And I remained the silent observer, the man who had waited patiently for the perfect moment. She began to realize, finally, that her life would never return to what it had been. Not just because of me, but because of her own choices. Every decision she had made, every lie she had told, had paved the way for this ruin. And yet, through it all, she didn't understand how methodical it had been. She thought it was chance. She thought it was karma. But it had been me. Every step. Every consequence. Carefully, deliberately, without a sound. And in the quiet nights, as she sobbed and reflected, I sat on the porch and drank coffee, watching the sunrise, thinking about how betrayal transforms a man. How patience, precision, and observation can be more powerful than rage. By the time she packed up her office, her life in cardboard boxes, I realized the full extent of what had been lost. Not just for her, but for both of us. The house was mine. The accounts were mine. The future she thought she had was gone. She left the building alone, unnoticed. And I remained, silent, watching her walk into the emptiness she had created. The storm had passed. The wreckage was complete. And I, for the first time in months, felt a strange kind of peace. She walked out of her office for the last time, the cardboard box heavy in her arms, every step echoing the life she had destroyed for herself. I watched from a distance, unnoticed, and felt nothing but quiet resolve. Her phone no longer held secrets. Her accounts no longer held power. Her friends had vanished, one by one, silently abandoning her. The man she had loved, the one she thought gave her freedom, was gone. He left the moment the truth became real. She arrived at her small apartment, emptier than she could have imagined. The furniture was sparse, the walls bare, the air cold and unfamiliar. No warmth. No laughter. Only silence. I had left nothing behind. Every asset, every comfort, every familiar trace of the life she had built with me was gone. She tried to reach out, first to friends, then to family. Most ignored her. A few offered mild sympathy, but the truth had spread quietly, efficiently. The whispers traveled faster than she could follow. Colleagues spoke in careful tones. Neighbors glanced in passing with polite but distant eyes. Her reputation, once a source of pride, had evaporated. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I simply observed, the way a man observes the storm he knows is inevitable. At night, I sat on the porch, rocking slowly, the chair creaking in the quiet. The air smelled of rain and old wood. I remembered the early years. The laughs, the late-night talks, the quiet mornings with coffee. And I remembered the betrayal. The contrast between the past and the present was stark. What was once warmth had become ashes. Her downfall was complete. Financial ruin, social isolation, loss of love. Every corner of her life reflected the consequences of her choices. And I remained, a silent witness to the ruin, calm as if nothing had happened. She reached out one last time, pleading for mercy, for reconciliation, for some trace of what we had. But the truth is, some things cannot be repaired. Some trust cannot be rebuilt once it's destroyed. I had nothing left to give her. Not forgiveness, not compassion, not the warmth of a shared past. She understood that finally, in quiet moments, when the apartment was dark, and no one was around. And I understood something too. That betrayal changes a man. That patience and precision can wield more power than rage. I had planned, observed, and executed. She had acted carelessly, and the consequences were hers alone. Time passed. Seasons changed. She existed, but only as a shadow of the woman she had once been. Her laughter was gone. Her confidence shattered. Her world hollowed. I carried on. The house, the accounts, the life we had shared, now mine entirely, free of deceit. And yet, in the quiet, there was a strange emptiness. Not regret, but reflection. I wondered, sometimes, in the dark of night, if there had been another way. But the truth is, there wasn't. She had chosen her path. And I had chosen mine. The storm had passed. The wreckage was complete. I sipped my coffee on the porch, watching the sunrise, listening to the world waking up around me. Everything was silent. Everything was still. And in that silence, I found a cold kind of peace. I hadn't sought joy. I hadn't sought vengeance for pleasure. I had sought balance. She had disrupted my life, my trust, my love. And I had restored it, piece by piece, in the only way I knew how. The weight of betrayal had lifted. The air felt lighter. I leaned back, letting the rocking chair sway slowly, feeling the day begin. And I knew, with certainty, that some lessons cannot be taught gently. Some truths are learned through the ruin of the things you hold dear. She had learned hers. I had learned mine. The past lingered, but the future was mine alone. And that was enough.